Hey everyone, it's time to wrap up July. So let's get started. In July, I actually uploaded videos again. We talked about the idea of what I'm reading and what I'm actually reading, what I can read, my perception of my reading, general those things. And I loved your comments. I loved your ideas on what you can read, how you're dealing with that, what you want to read, and how that changes. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful discussion. Another video I uploaded was my second goals check-in for the year, and I'm still doing well on the bookish goals. Everything else I kind of decided to make new goals. So let's see how that is going. Thank you all for sharing your goals and how you're doing. And of course, thank you all for enjoying my letter to the month and your wonderful comments as usual. So let's move on to the books. I had a rather interesting reading month. It was varied in what I read and what I liked and all the things. I uploaded a separate review for Jagua. This is a book set in 1960s Nigeria, Lagos, and it follows Jagua, a woman in her mid-40s who is trying to find her way and make a living for herself and decide how she wants to live. It's kind of confusing for me to summarize it. In the book, when I started reading it, I found it very hard to figure out what this book is about. But the more I read, the more I figured out it's about the woman and how she lives. It's portraying the life in Lagos in the 1960s, comparing it to village life in the area, and always centered around this woman trying to make a living, let's say it like that. And it was very interesting. I never throughout the book liked Jagua. I always thought she was a very unlikable person, but she's interesting, and the things she does make more and more sense the more you move on reading and you understand her better. And I can highly recommend it. Another separate review I uploaded was for Safekeeping. This is a nonfiction about the author of the book, and I really enjoyed the writing style. It's a lot of short chapters, different perspectives, and we also have more a feeling of the person than of her life. So reading this book, I feel like I understood the person, but I didn't know everything about her life. I can highly recommend it. Like I said, separate review goes more into detail as well. The other only physical book I read was From Rufio to Zuko, and this is also a memoir. It's very short as well. I uploaded a combined recent reads video where I talk more about this. But I can highly recommend this as it's a very interesting look into Dante Basco's life and him being a child actor, a marginalized child actor in Hollywood, how he's working, his voice acting, his poetry, and also his activism. I really learned a lot about a person I didn't know anything about, and I thought it was very well written, really transforming his emotions and his ideas and hopes. I enjoyed it very much. In that combined recent reads video, I also talked about Minor Mage, which is a short novella, fun quest fantasy of a 12-year-old young wizard going out to catch the rain to end the drought in his village. And the adventures he has, the people he meets, the questions or worries he has while doing that, it's fun. It's fast-paced. You can read it in one go. You really want to go on this adventure with Oliver, and it's just drives you on. It's very captivating. Really enjoyed it. Another novella I talked about in that recent reads video is The Ballad of Black Tom, which I liked and didn't like. The book is separated in two parts. The first part is told from Tom's perspective, who's a young black man in Harlem who's hustling, trying to make money, and who gets involved in some magic mystery things happening. This book is set in the 1920s. There's also a lot about his life. I'm dealing with the police who are involved in this magic or other business, and that is also very well portrayed, very captivating. The first part is really fast-paced. You dive into the story, you want to read more, you're with the characters, you're really in the middle of things. Then the second part switches perspective, and you get the story or the rest of the story from the perspective of one of the policemen. And there it lost pace. I really wasn't in the story as much anymore. You saw it from another perspective, so you're more on the outside, and it was yeah, less captivating. It was still worth reading and I really enjoyed it, but I liked the first part better. The last book I talked about in the recent reads video is The Golem and the Jinni, and I listened to this on audiobook and I loved it. I kept putting off the book because I didn't find I have the time or the mood to read this chunky big book, and I always avoided reading it on audio. And I don't know why. The audiobook was amazing. I loved the experience. I'm so glad I finally got the book. The book is set at the end of the 19th century in New York, and for some reason we have these two magical creatures, a golem and a genie, arriving in the city. And we see a lot of their stories parallel, where they try to adapt, try to make a living, hide who they really are. And it's heartbreaking to read how they try to be less than they are and how it's grating on them. And when they meet, the story takes a different turn and it's fascinating. It's so captivating. There is mystery, there is magic. I can highly recommend this, even on audiobook. You fell in love with the characters and the story, and I just loved it. The rest of the books I haven't really talked about in separate videos already. There I listened to M-Train, and even though I enjoyed it, I kept wondering while I was listening to M-Train if I just enjoy the experience of listening to Patti Smith read her books. Because I'm not sure if I like her writing or if I just like her telling me about her life. Because that's what M-Train feels like a lot. Like you sitting somewhere with her for a cup of coffee and she talks about her life, tells you things she's done, she's thought about, like having a conversation. And I enjoyed that. But I don't know if I can say M-Train is a well-written book on its own. I don't know. I loved the audiobook though. Another audiobook I listened to was The Real Sherlock. I got this as one of the free originals that you get with your membership on Audible, and that's about what it was worth. It was a short audiobook talking about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and having interviews and some information about his life, but to be really informative, I would recommend reading something else that is longer and goes into more detail about his life. This was just very entertaining for what it was. And I listened to another memoir in July, Where I Am Now. This is the story of Mara Wilson, where she tells us how it was being Matilda and being a child actor and growing up and not being an actor anymore, at least not in the way that she may have thought in the beginning. I really learned a lot about Mara Wilson that I didn't know, which of course wasn't really much. Let's be honest, I didn't really follow her along. But I thought the book was very well written in aspects to child acting, how it has affected her life, but also her mental health and how that had effects on her life and her career and everything. I also really enjoyed hearing where she is now, what she's doing now, and how she's struggling, and how university and everything was for her. And also comments on other things that she had going on in recent years. And I enjoyed that. I can highly recommend this audiobook. Okay, the last audiobook I listened to, I liked and didn't like. It was The Art of Thinking, and I got this in a 2-for-1 sale, and I was very surprised when it started to tell me that it was a translation from the German. Anyways, I got it for almost free, so I was quite happy with that. It's basically a list of thinking errors, and the book is not helping you in any way. It's not a guideline, it's not putting advice on how to deal with these errors. It's just portraying these thinking errors and biases we have. And quite a few I heard of before, and the author is like that as well. He says he came across them and he just listed them and he thought they were very helpful. But he also says it's not a guide on how to deal with that. So as an audiobook, I liked listening to it, but I don't think it's very helpful to have it as an audiobook. I kept wanting to go back to certain biases to really think about that, but I always find that rather hard to do when you're listening to an audiobook. So I'm thinking of getting a physical book as well. Probably the English one as well, because the German is 3 times as expensive and not available. I don't really get that. Anyways, I can recommend this because it's really good to know about the biases we all carry and the stupid things we do because of them. But get a book that you can note and flip back and forth. yeah, even though the audiobook was well done. The last book I read didn't turn out as well as I hoped it would. It was T. Kingfisher's new novel, Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, and it started off fine. We were in a magical world where people have magic, but not everyone is a spectacular magician or wizard, but you may have the power to change the weather, or to talk to dead horses, or influence bread. And that's our main magician, Mona, who we're following. She's 14 years old and she works in the bakery of her aunt, and it starts off by her finding a dead body. And things evolve from there, and it turns into a mystery and a story where the magic is feared by the people, and then the city is attacked from the outside and from the inside, and Mona has to really use her magic to protect the city and also work with everyone there. I'm trying not to spoil this, but the main thing I had with this book, I liked the characters, but I thought it was a lot of repetition. It's written for children more than for adults, so maybe the repetition isn't as annoying then. But I found it very repetitive and annoying that she was always complaining a child shouldn't have to do this, which is correct. And it's an interesting idea to point this out in a book where the child is the hero, that the child is aware that it's a grown-up's job, that she shouldn't have to do this, she shouldn't have to deal with this, which is a nice idea. But the more it was said, the more it got on my nerves. Also, the first 200 pages were rather fast-paced and I was really into the story. But then the last 100 pages kind of dragged and I wasn't as motivated or invested in the story anymore. I don't know what happened there. And there's a shift in what happens, so it does make sense that it happens around the 200-page mark, but I don't know. It wasn't as good as what I expected, and it wasn't as much fun as I expected, and I'm used to buy her books, so I don't really know. Check it out if you want to. Before I go, I also wanted to tell you about 2 podcasts that I was listening to at the end of the month. I kind of had trouble concentrating on books. That's why I listened to a lot of nonfiction this month, but also looked into podcasts a little bit. And I stumbled upon Guru, which is a 6-part podcast looking into the events of people dying at a self-help retreat. And it is fascinating. I'm usually not a fan of true crime, so I don't know if it's good or bad or normal for the genre, but it was looking into the events, into the self-help guru there, and into the families, the effects around it, a little bit into the self-help world, and I was fascinated. I couldn't stop listening, so I thought I should tell you about that. The other podcast I started listening to in July, and I think I finished by now, is WorkLife by Adam Grant. And I've been struggling a lot with working from home and work issues. I'm going to make a separate video about that soon. But I thought I need inspiration, I need help. And what's better than to listen to podcasts about work? And there was also what got me into it, a podcast about the struggles from working from home. Unfortunately, it wasn't the struggles that I'm having, but that got me interested in all the other topics I were talking about, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought I should tell you about that too. And that's enough about me. Tell me in comments how your reading was. Did you have a good July? Did you have a bad July? I'm currently on vacation and I hope to read more than I am, but that's always the case, isn't it? Let's talk in comments. Thank you all for watching. Bye bye.